defend this August House. Their reputation challenges are self-inflicted. That, for instance, the president picked his cabinet. They were given motion moja, and the president himself came back and said he's more informed than his cabinet and some of the people that Parliament approved. I mean, that is the big challenge that we have with these legislators. And generally, it is a governance system design that we failed ourselves. It is the nature of presidential systems. And it's just clever, even if it were me, a democratic practitioner, if you gave me the presidency, the first attempt I'll do is to capture Parliament, because that is how you govern freely. And William Ruto is doing no political crime by doing so. The capture, it is in the principle of the individual elected leaders to do their job. But let's look at this thing more broadly without looking at the merits and demerits of the issues that are bedeviling the swearing in and the gazettement for the IEBC. I think the public interest of having a commission in place far outweighs any other reason I have seen put forward. We cannot fail to put a commission in place as soon as possible so that we can prepare. As it is, we have a very difficult elections coming up in 2027, and anytime we have had an election where an incumbent is seeking a second term, we are troubled. That is 2007, that is 2017, and it is 2027. All right, and we need to be sure that we are preparing well. Already there are challenges. You know, many constituencies are not represented. Many wards are not represented. These are constitutional, imperatives that we must be able to achieve. So just on that, but even before we get to the vetting of Parliament, I think the selection panel, again, blundered. I think the question of how the shortlist happened, and then another addition of others, and then you have Hassan Noor coming through the extra 6, and then nominated, and then there's some relationships coming up. That is a credibility issue that Parliament was thrown at a skunk by the selection panel. And one thing we must acknowledge, Trevor, and I agree and at the same time differ with Dr. Ojuang, the issues around broad-based government must not be political, and that is why we are here, right? A broad-based is a concept of the Constitution. What stopped William Ruto from making sure that he has a broad-based government when
from the beginning? Yeah.
Does it have to take Raila to have a handshake so that you achieve a broad-based government? It is its own self-infliction. Yeah. And the challenges that we have here, Trevor, is because the opposition, the people that are not on the table here, they think they are the menu in 2027. So possibly Wamnyoro team and Kalonzo's team and the others are beginning to ask themselves, so who is our man inside?
Yeah.
All right? Because of this misapplication and misinterpretation, misunderstanding of what a broad-based, it is insinuated in our mother law. Yeah. It should not be about the politics of stomach. All right? It should not be about Raila Odinga joining government for Nyanza to get development. It should not about Binatembea being friendly to the regime for the people of Trans Nzoia like myself to benefit. All right? Because broad-based is clearly in the spirit and letter of the Constitution. What stopped William Ruto from forming a broad-based government from the word go? In any case, William Ruto didn't just become president. If you just add the votes of Rift Valley, in Mount Kenya, does not make William Ruto president. He got votes from across the country. Yeah. So when it comes to this, do we need to reward political appointees? And then again, we're in a quagmire. Because Dr. Ojuang will tell you, and some of us are in that trouble, is that you reach at a place in your career where you need political capital to grow. It is impossible to become a commissioner without a political godfather. Let's just be pragmatically ruthless about this. Yeah. All right, there must be some social capital you have calculated, invested in the political circles to arrive at being an IEBC chairman. So if you look at, I can tell you, even if these spouses of these leaders were appointed as commissioners, they would still be suspicious of them.
But is Parliament a captive of the executive? This keeps coming up. Or should we now look at the bigger picture, which is in 2027, then there's an election coming up, we have time constraints, and therefore this commission needs to be put in place. But what is the impact of that, considering Kenyans have trust issues with the institutions? And then there's what Kwanza is saying. There's a list of 6 who were brought in. Nobody has ever explained why those 6 were added to the list, and then one of them is a commissioner. So do Kenyans have genuine concerns that this could be a skewed IEBC?
Firstly, Kenyans have always had no faith in our electoral merchandise. And you remember in 2007, when the late President Kibaki was declared winner, and a few minutes later sworn in under cover of darkness, and the whole country went up in flames. It fed into the lack of confidence into our elections. And since then, the country has tried the much it can to attain levels of electoral purity. That is why, for example, before we had black boxes, very opaque in nature, and we had to move to transparent boxes. Before, we relied on Bomas of Kenya, 100%. Now, declaration of results at the polling station is final. And those who are part of the electoral reforms that were instituted. Then we introduced KIEMs, machines for identification, and voting machines, so that at least, whereas, there would still be human mistakes, but reduced to levels that would be understandable. That is why when you go to a court of law and a gap between number 2 and the winner is 3,000 votes, for example, and you've taken evidence of disparity of 5 votes, they will still throw you out because they will say that is a human error. So provisions for human error will be there. But as a country, we have come from too far. Now, there are artificial barricades made by human beings like you and I into an election process. Even with all the machines at the disposal of IEBC. A classical example is what happened in the year 2017, when Chebukati declared results that were invalidated by the Supreme Court. I mean, one of its kind in Africa. They had everything they needed, but still faltered. So if Kenyans are waiting for a particular period of time where we are going to have angels running our electoral systems, then it will take too long. As my brother Mukwanja has said, certain times people take too long to build social capital. And it is upon the social capital that people do things. I'm not saying that these people appearing on the newspaper have built political capital, political and social capital to reach where they are, because I know Ande Ritu, for instance, has been registrar of political parties. Now, the biggest consumers of services offered by IEBC are political parties. So you needed somebody who understands the political parties' processes. You need an IT guru, for example, because it is electronically transmitted results. You need somebody who understands leadership, who understands management, who understands finances. Because even within IEBC, there are subcommittees that deal with certain things. And the chair of those subcommittees must be somebody with knowledge.
So you have confidence in this team of 7?
Well, just as I have said, Kenyans would still have no confidence in any team because of our history. Apart from the year 2002, when Kibaki genuinely won, because he lost in 2007, Kenyans have never had confidence in IEBC, but we hope that the team that has been constituted and has talked about artificial barricades, by the way, they cannot be sworn into office.
Yeah.
Even if Parliament proceeds today to gazette them, it is an exercise in futility. There is already a conservatory order. And remember, the swearing in must be done by the Chief Justice.
Yeah.
Now, the Chief Justice is the head of the judiciary where that case is...
the conservatory orders are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that even if any party will lose at the level where that case is at, it may move all the way to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
So if she proceeds to swear in these commissioners and the matter lands at her desk finally, will she recuse herself? It will be very untidy for her.
Okay.
And therefore, as Kenyans, we just have to accept that the process has been concluded, awaiting the determination of the court.
Yeah.
And if they proceed to be sworn into office, they will be up and running. Because you remember, 21 by-elections must be done. 21 in number. That's not a small election. That's like a mini general election.
Yeah.
So then you have the registration of new voters, who are in millions now. Then you have the boundary delimitation that we have spoken about for way too long.
Yeah.
Finally, the Kriegler Commission, if you remember, said that to have a credible election, the electoral agency, the arbiter, must be in office 2 years before the election. As we speak, we are exactly 2 years before the next election. So we are actually running behind time already.
Okay. All right. Dr. Juang, do you have confidence in this team of 7?
Thank you, Trevor. You know, I see very diverse individuals.
Yeah.
And competent. But the test of pudding is in the eating. You know, it's like assembling the various ingredients for a cake, and then you test the flour, you lick sugar, you warm yourself by the fire, and then you say this is going to be a good cake. No, not yet, until they are mixed and it is baked. So it's not yet baked.
Yeah.
And I will wait until it is baked. And the reason I'm saying that is that even if they were perfect, what makes a difference is eternal vigilance. Human beings are human beings. And so it does not matter whether, and there is consensus here that they are a very good team, but they must remain accountable. They must remain open to all stakeholders. All stakeholders. They must engage. They must do procurement in a way that everyone accepts. If this is the technology, then it has been done, it has been bidded in a way that it's the most inclusive we have all seen. And so their real work, so to speak, not to belabor the point, is on how they will work. But, and so eternal vigilance is needed, whether you have people who can walk on water, because we live in a country where there is politics, and but my point is that, you know, as much as politicians are stakeholder, IEBC and the voting is about the people and the right to vote. And I think sometimes they hog the space too much, the politicians, they do, and IEBC simply become an issue for politicians. I look at even those petitions, and I look at those interests that are not represented at the table. The people who are looking to get an MCA representation and not in parliament. Yet they are real people with a genuine interest. And so sometimes, you know, you can find that when something happened like an accident, the people who scream the most are not the one who are hurt the most. In fact, you have heard of the incident where somebody screamed the most, and it was a nail that had hit their finger, and then the person said, "You are screaming more than the rest," because the rest were really hurt. So when you see the people sometime who go to court, the people sometime push this process or try to fight for their right, which is a constitutional right, and it is fair. The way we have perfected our union is through the court, is through vigilance, but the people who are not there sometimes become the most aggrieved. So I think to that extent, when I look at the history that Jared and Kwanza was bringing, remember there's a time our election was presided by the DC, then the Office of Attorney General. Then the political parties will meet and agree on who become presiding, the IPPG model. Yeah. Then it moved to independent constitutional commission that is anchored in the constitution, that is brought in by an independent panel that is broad, that is so we are perfecting the process. Is it perfect yet? No, but can we work with it? I believe so. Even though there are questions raised, I think the public interest, law is to cause order, not disorder. Okay. And so I think there is serious public interest on getting these people hit the ground, because there is so much to be done and there is so much that they need to cover. As Kenyans remain vigilant in watching whatever they do.
All right, I have to bring in some quick feedback, but Joe, let me hear from you here. You seem to be agreeing here that it doesn't matter who is put at the IEBC, there's a trust deficit that is quite low. Then how then do we build that confidence so that it doesn't matter who's there? If I come to the feedback and give you each a closing remark for 1 minute.
Trevor, I think I've listened to my co-panelists and some of them taking us through, what has happened with the different commissions, starting with ECK and now IEBC. But I think never before have we ever had, a commission with so many members, linked into one particular participant of the upcoming elections. We have had, yes, people have expressed their concerns about the independence of IEBC, but we have never had such before. Remember, the commission has 7 commissioners. 4 of the commissioners now appointed have a direct linkage to President William Ruto, who is going to be a participant in the upcoming elections. And I mean the chairman, I had explained, and people know. I mean linked to Nanok, who is linked to the president. I mean Sorobit, who has actually even worked for UDA, which is the president's party. Nur, who is Junet's in-law. And of course, Junet supports Ruto, and Alutalala, who is linked to Mudavadi, who, of course, will support William Ruto. So never before have we ever had such that kind of number of IEBC commissioners linked directly to a participant of an election that we are going to administer. But why those of us who support Rigathi Gachagua are not worried about whom it is? In fact, we don't care whether people even appoint, if it was possible, their relatives, their sons, wives, daughters. It's because we know how the numbers are. And we know whether President Ruto has the support of even the 7 commissioners, all of them. He's going to lose the election because, of course, we can see the numbers and we know that the gap will be so huge, so wide, rather, that it will not be able, that nobody will be able to plug the difference. And so that's why we are not worried, and we are saying, because if we bring litigations, then we could as well delay, the swearing in of these commissioners. And, they have to be sworn in 2 years before the election. And, actually, I suspect that President Ruto can sponsor people to go and litigate so that we delay the election, And we do not want the election delayed even by a single day. So we are saying, let the commissioners come, let them be sworn in, whoever they are. We are beating Ruto. hands down. So, I mean, the only game that he can play is delaying the swearing in of these commissioners, delaying the commission, and then we get problems with the Constitution, which provides that it has to be in place 2 years before the election. I don't know whether you want me to do my closing remarks.
No. Pacifier on the other side. If Raila Odinga and William Ruto are going to find themselves on one side. So the pacifier here now is having a credible, fair IEBC that can actually deliver an election and an outcome that Kenyans believe is the legitimate result. Otherwise, we are brewing ourselves a lot of trouble, and this has to be spoken today. I have a lot of confidence in the qualifications of these individuals. Some of them are well known to us. They have been mentioned here, very progressive career civil servants, very good on paper, but we need to remain eternally vigilant and support this. It is in our interest that a commission must be in place and we have a good election in 2027.
All right, Okello, 30 seconds.
Well, we take judicial notice that anyone impeached cannot run for political office, and therefore Rigathi will not. I'm looking forward to a situation where the Mount Kenya bastion will rally behind somebody else outside their own. I know they have said they are going to attend some seminar to arrive at a candidate. I'm looking to wait, the white smoke out of that seminar. Trevor, as I said, we are running behind time. We need to have IEBC properly constituted and in office to carry out the reforms that are necessary before we get into that election. But I believe so far that the recruitment process has been above board. Whatever remains is before a court of law to determine whether the issues that have been raised by the petitioners really hold. But I hope and pray that this newly constituted commission will make Kenyans proud. We have always gotten it wrong, but let's hope that this is going to be a credible team that will deliver results that are reflective of the wishes and aspirations of the Kenyan people.
All right, Rajwang.
Yes, briefly, this is one of the demands the Gen Z put on the table, quick reconstitution of IEBC, and therefore I think it will be important for it to be seen to conclusion. Election is very important, that we compete and that the referees are given time to bond, to do a free job. But again, as I've alluded, Kenyans must not think these people are perfect. They should continue to monitor what they are doing, and they must also be accountable. And again, I think finally it's a good thing that we have a country where every time we do politics, we again sit at the table or under an African tree, agree to disagree, agree without competing. And therefore, that democratic model might not be the Western one of pure competition, but the one that we pull back sometime and talk, that should not be castigated. That, to me, is a very good thing. Thank you.
Joe?
Trevor, I just think I want to ask Jared to look for a good pastor.
Don't mention him again.
No, just...
I'm here on the sidelines.
Why I say that is because instead of telling us how they are going to win the elections, he cannot do 2 sentences without mentioning Rigathi Gachagua, and that's why I think he needs some deliverance. I can help him locate a good pastor who can help him in deliverance from the nightmares that Gachagua is causing him and his group. And there is a reason, Trevor, why IEBC, I stands for independent. And these commissioners, this commission, in the eyes of Kenyans, may not be independent. And so I don't know what can be done. But finally, just to ask ODM to eat quietly. And if you enter into a polygamous union where you are the second wife and the first wife is thrown out, you don't have to keep throwing barbs at the first wife who has no business with you, who has moved away from the husband that you want to keep, praising. Concentrate with your new husband. Leave the old wife alone. Let the old wife and her children chart a new way. You don't have to keep talking about them. And finally, Kenya ODM should stop being Kenya Kwanza more than Kenya Kwanza itself. Okay. If you look at the attacks that we in Wamunyoro, as like calling us, are getting, it is from ODM. We are wondering, what problem does ODM have with us? We left the husband. They unworthy husband to them. Okay. Please keep your husband. Okay. We have no use for the new husband now. So just concentrate. Let us be. All right. We do not have. But Jared, please see me. I know of a good pastor. You need a deliverance.